All right, happy Sunday, BridgePoint. How we doing? We good? Awesome. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're tuning in. I'm glad that you're downtown, even though I know most of you are really just trying to curry favor with God that the Bucks might win this afternoon. And I'm glad that you did it. I'm glad that you did it here and today. I'm glad that you're tuning in because honestly, we're playing the Saints. And I don't know how God feels about NFL teams, but we need to be here. You may even want to invite a friend to catch the service later, just in case. You have until this evening, right? Just kidding, sort of. Week 3 of Better Than Normal. I'm so glad that you're here. If you've missed any of them, head over to BridgePoint's YouTube channel. Catch up on the first 2 weeks. We would love for you to subscribe to that, like those, share those, just in an effort to increase the potential influence of somebody getting to hear the good news about Jesus and the plans and purposes that he has for their life. Today's going to be extra special. Next week, we got Chad in the house. It's going to bring a message on relationships, marriage. You don't want to miss that one. And then on January 31st, so in 2 weeks from today, we have a baptism Sunday. Oh my goodness, I'm pumped for it, all right? I hope you are excited. It's going to be incredible. If that's your next step, if you're thinking, man, in 2021, I want to be faithful. I want to be obedient to God. And baptism is a part of that next step. I'd love for you to reach out to us, reach out to me, comment in the chat online. We would love to follow up with you to see if this is the right next step for you in your journey of getting closer to God. That will be a day of celebration. So don't miss the next couple weeks as we start to wrap up this series and what God has in store for us. I'm excited. Today, in the Better Than Normal series, this is going to be an interesting one. So let's see if we can pull this off together, because this is the question I would like to ask us. How can I have a better than normal family? Ooh. Right? You can almost feel the weight of that one in the room. You see some of the elbows to the spouses saying, you better make sure you pay attention to this one. And I know in some of your minds, it's like, okay, I'm going to listen to this one because I know people that I need to send the YouTube link to for this one. The crazy uncle, he's top of the list. The tension in the family members, I'm getting this word out because a better than normal family sounds nice. Maybe some of you are in the room walking in feeling like your family's in a good place. Bravo. Bravo. I'm glad that you're in that place. I'd love to take it together to the next level. But if I'm totally honest, there are some of you that are tuning in or joining into a BridgePoint message today when the term of family does not strike a happy chord. That when you think about family, you're thinking about a picture that is rather unhealthy or broken or imperfect. When you think about family, you think about tensions of folks that aren't talking. You think about a dad that's absent or that you've never even known. You think about extended family that are crazy and are doing things that seems like to just work against the unity of the family itself. You think about unhealth that exists. You think about all the people that you would call family and how they are the ones that need to hear this message. And maybe you're right. But today I want you to understand that I'm actually not preaching that message for any of them. Today's message is actually for you. It's for me. But Tyler, I'm not the problem. Good. I'm glad that you're not. But today's message is for you, and it's for me, regardless of your family background, regardless of what family means to you. Even if you're a single adult among us, this is a message for you. If you're coming from a product, as I am, of a broken home and families that have dysfunction in its journey, this is a message from you. For you. If it's a journey where you're pleased with where your family is and the trajectory that it's on, this is a message for you. It's a message for all of us. And if you're sitting in the room wondering if this is a message that at all will apply to you, if this is a message that because I don't know your family's story that you're not sure if you'll be able to connect with it at all, I want you to know that you're still in the right place. And here's what I mean. If we go back and look at the Bible and its examples of family, in fact, let's just go to the original family, Adam and Eve, Genesis, the very first book in the Bible, chapter 4. That's 4 chapters into the creation story and the beginnings of family. I want you to see what family looked like even biblically. Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 through 2. Now, Adam knew Eve, his wife. That's like the biblical knowing that has consequences, because look what happened. And she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I've gotten a man with the help of the Lord. And again, she bore his brother Abel. Now, Abel was a keeper of the sheep, Cain a worker of the ground. She's got 2 sons, Eve does. This is Eve of Adam and Eve. She had 2 sons, very different sons with very different perspectives, all right? 6 verses later, here's the story. Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother, and Abel killed him. The original family made it 6 verses into the Bible before a brother killed another brother. I do not know your family story, but I'm confident you belong in this place. In fact, if you study throughout all of the Bible, Old Testament all the way to the end, at pictures and stories and the actual historical people that are in the Bible, you actually see far more dysfunction than you do examples of families that are living it out right. You see examples of imperfect people where God shows up and does what only God can do. It's just a matter of whether or not, like we just sang, we make room for him to move or not. That's the picture. So when I say family, whatever that conjures for you, whatever it means to you, wherever you are in the family journey, I want you to know that you belong in this message. You belong in this moment, and you belong in this opportunity to see what the God of the universe might want to speak to you. Don't get me wrong. Families are a unique thing this day and age. There's a lot that comes with that. And I love my family. I don't want to misrepresent myself either. I love my family, but here's what I recognize. There are no perfect families. In fact, the way to achieve a perfect family, if I might insult you for just a moment, is for you to get out of your family. Then we'd be a little bit closer. And yes, your aunt would have to get out, and your mom would have to get out, and your sister would have to get out, and the crazy uncle, and me, I'd have to be out of those things, because my point is there are no perfect families. So don't come at this message just trying to get the checkbox of being able to say, ta-da, we've arrived. If you reach that point, then we have a hard truth for you. You have not arrived, because you and I are imperfect people, no matter how much we love our family, and I sure do mine. My wife is an absolute gift that complements me and keeps me focused on the straight and narrow with precision. She's so good at that. She's the best wife ever. I'm not even in trouble. I'm just saying that. I know what you're thinking. And then there's my 5-year-old Judah. Judah's such a fun-loving kid, loves sports, loves to compete. He will just light up the world. And then there's my precious 3-year-old daughter, Juliet, who is a future leader. Translated, please send help. Pastor dealing with strong-willed child and losing his marbles. I can't keep going at this pace. In fact, unbeknownst to her that I was going to even say that this morning, on the way into church, she said, Dad, will you please talk to the people about me today? So if you see my daughter, please tell her that I did, not for her sake, but for mine, because if I don't do what she says, I know I will have consequences. Families. What an interesting thing. And the reason I bring this up in the middle of a series that we're calling Better Than Normal is because, like it or not, the reality is, in this faith journey, either Jesus, who is central to all we're about here at BridgePoint, is worth following, worth listening to, worth devoting our lives to, or he's not. And that's why we bring that up, because Jesus is quoted by an eyewitness as saying, I came, Jesus said, so that anybody that follows him, can have real and eternal life, more and better life than they ever dreamed of. Better than normal. How's life for you? Either we take Jesus at his word, that he's truthful, that he has plans and purposes for us, or he doesn't. And I want to take you back to the very first week for one big idea to make sure we're starting on the exact same page, and that's this big idea. There's no neutral relationship with God. We're either drifting from him or getting closer to him. And I want you to understand that in the context of family, if your family hovers around, and builds itself upon the foundation of God, then you can actively work to move your family closer to him. If that isn't the case, then even in your family, it will drift from God. So what does that mean? Your family's not going to drift towards health. Your family won't drift towards godliness. Your family won't try to drift towards doing the right things. It's going to take effort and intentionality and purpose on our parts to experience what God has in store for the better than normal related to families. And in fact, from the very beginning, God has had plans for that. I want you to hear it in Deuteronomy. This is Old Testament. This was the people that were in pursuit of God, that God had to give them a list of rules, do's and don'ts to follow, because they couldn't get that this faith thing was really supposed to be a heart thing. And so in those lists of rules, God actually spoke through Moses a game plan for families. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9. Here's what Moses told the people of God was important. He said, listen, O Israel, that's God's family. The Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. Please hear that at no point in what Moses is communicating did Moses say the standard is for you and I to do this perfectly. Anyone walking in the room with an expectation of their family or themselves to be perfect, you're adding a weight that even God didn't place on your life. Because here's what he continued to say. Repeat them, the commands, the things of God, loving God with all your heart. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Now understand, as that's being communicated, that had some very specific context to the times, right? The people of Israel were looking for the practices that they could lead their family in. But what I want you to hear today is that what Moses was trying to communicate to them, I think if he was talking today in 2020, he would say, please, oh please, make God a part of your life. Make God a part of your family. Make God central to this thing. Build your life around him. But parents, I want to encourage you, please don't overthink what that means. Please don't paralyze yourself in that you end up doing nothing. Because I think if Moses was here today, what Moses would be saying is, when it comes to your kids, talk about me to them when you're driving them to school. Talk about me to them when you pick them up. Talk about what I'm doing in your midst around the dinner table. Look for the teachable moments and seize them to show your kids how I'm working. And in the moments when life is hard, or when it comes with struggle, or when it comes with uncertainty, share with your kids about that too. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just make it a part of what it needs to be. Your life, your daily life, and your family. Just live with God as a centerpiece of the journey and allow him to be a part of the story. Look for the teachable moments. Look for the easy moments. Look for the layups. Look for the hard times, and just process with them what you've learned about God, how you've grown closer to God, and how they might do the same. Don't overthink it. And Moses says to God's people, if you'll commit yourself to this, if you'll love God with all that you've got, imperfectly as it may be, he actually wraps up this speech about family by saying this: it'll be a set right, put together life for us if we make sure that we do this entire commandment in the presence of God, our God, just as he commanded us to do. Now, don't get hung up on the commandment part. We live now on this side of Jesus, and there's lots of grace for all the ways we don't get it right. But please see what's important about this statement. Moses made it really clear that the goal was to do these things in the presence of God, with God. The goal was never perfection. The goal was presence. Don't make this too hard. Just make God a part of when it gets hard. Make God a part of the journey. Allow God to be in it. And you don't have to have all the right answers. You don't have to have all the right list of things to do. Just have God as a part of that journey too. In other words, one of the things I want you to understand from this talk is that God has had a specific plan for a healthy family from the beginning. Like, God didn't create this. God didn't install families. God didn't set Adam and Eve free to populate the earth and create family and just say, man, I hope they figure it out. But God actually gave a plan that they could experience a healthy family as a part of the journey. Now, if you're in the room saying, yeah, healthy family, that's a joke when it comes to me, stick with me because I've got something and I want to go there for a second. But while I'm in this neighborhood, I want every parent tuning in or joining on a campus to understand the depth of value that is available in our Next Gen ministries. My goodness, our BridgePoint team does a phenomenal job, parents, at coming alongside you as you make God a part of your family. Our BP youth team does a phenomenal job putting relationships over everything so that your teenagers can have a place that they hear from other people beside their parents on what it looks like to make God a part of their lives. And my local is blowing up with the potential of relationship availability for the young adults. Exercise those experiences. Invest in those experiences. Prioritize those experiences because your kids will not drift closer to God. Prioritize it. Parents, if I could say one tough word one last time, not from a place of perfection, but a place of in process, your calling as a parent is not first to be a friend to your child. Your calling as a parent is to first be a parent. My 3-year-old that thinks she rules the house still has to eat the green vegetables. She doesn't understand that. It repulses her. She's offended that anyone might tell her what to do, but I do it because I know it is important for her physical health and growth. How much more important for the souls of our kids is it for us to be parents and prioritize the very things that will help our kids get closer to God? That is not optional. That is our calling as parents. Now, if you're in the room saying, yeah, but that sounds great. That sounds really great, but you don't understand my family. You don't know my background. You don't know the experiences that exist, the skeletons that are in our closet, the mistakes that have been made, the dysfunction that's a part of it. I don't know a parent. I don't know an uncle. I don't know extended family. I don't even know what's going on in my own nuclear family. I don't want you sitting in the room seeing this and saying, well, this church thing, this Jesus thing clearly is not for me because I don't have a perfect family. And that's where I want to remind you, good, you're in the right place, because none of us do. And here's the greatest caution. I came across this quote this week that I just thought, man, if I could walk out with everybody in the room pondering this thought and how it naturally destroys the God-given goals and purposes for families, regardless of what family looks like or means to you, then this is a win. Stanley Hauerwas is a Duke ethics professor, and he's quoted as saying this, stick with me for it. Destructive to marriage, therefore family, destructive to marriage is the self-fulfillment ethic that assumes marriage and the family are primarily institutions of personal fulfillment necessary for us to become whole and happy. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. To sum it up, what is most destructive for your family, what will be most destructive in your marriage, in your extended family, your relationship with your kids or future kids, what will be most destructive to your spouse, to your parents, to your siblings, to your aunts and uncles, is to view all of them as part of your family as means toward your end. That in order for you to feel fulfilled, that in order for life to be satisfying for you, that in order for you to feel complete or whole, it's up to them to make you happy. And the moment we place our souls, The moment we place our quest for wholeness, health, and completeness in the hands of anyone else, we have failed ourselves and them. Why? Because every other person is just as broken as you and me. They were not made. Your spouse was not made. Your family wasn't made so that you and I might feel complete. Your family was made to get closer to the only one who ever could complete us in the beginning, and that's God. That's why Jesus came. You see, the moment we reach this place, love really becomes more of a feeling. In other words, you're either making me happy or you're not. And in order for me to love you, you must perform to a standard for me, or I need to unlove you. That's not love. That's not what love looks like, sounds like, or truly is. Love instead is a decision that says, in your imperfections and mine, I will choose you. And together in our decision for each other, we will revolve around God so that God alone can fulfill us and satisfy us in a way that nothing, especially no one, ever will be capable of. And that, I think, is one of the greatest sources of dysfunction that exists in so many families. Because people can recognize that they're searching for something. People know that there's a brokenness inside that comes from somewhere. But the problem is people end up looking towards other broken, imperfect people for fulfillment that is not possible. And that, as a side note, is why I hope you're here. Because all of us are broken, imperfect people. That's called sin. It's what the Bible calls sin. All of us entered this world from the moment Adam and Eve sinned, and sin fractured all of creation. We exist in a world that is broken. It doesn't take much convincing to be aware of that. And part of the reason it is broken is not just because sin entered the world, but it's because you and I are in the world and we are sinners. That brokenness exists in us because we're so busy trying to make sure other people or things fill a gap that exists inside of us. That it completes us or it makes us happy, or we have to turn to a substance or a person or a bank account or an ideal or a marriage or a family that we think will fill for us a void that only God is capable of. And when we do that, when we live out the sin that exists inside of us, choosing self above everything else, it is no wonder there is so much brokenness that exists in relationships. Are there examples of families that are in healthier places than others that don't follow God? Yes. But God is still the giver of good gifts and has given them grace. That's his business, not mine, and I don't want to go too far down that rabbit trail. As much as to point us all back to the reality that the brokenness that exists in us will not be cured if we continually project it on someone else. That's why moments like this matters, because I need you to understand something. That when Jesus came and when Jesus promised that he'd come to give us a more and better life than we could even dream of, it's only possible when we place our hopes, dreams, expectations, and fulfillment on him. Because Jesus came and lived the life that, quite frankly, you and I couldn't. Jesus came and loved the way that we are incapable of loving. Jesus came and turned the world upside down. That history has been different because of him. And his life was everything that you and I couldn't live up to. And then Jesus died the death that, quite frankly, you and I deserved because of our sin, our brokenness, our selfish nature. And Jesus hung there on that cross until his last breath had gone, dead. And they placed this perfect, sinless Jesus into a tomb. Because what he'd done in that moment was died a death that would be for us. And in most stories, that would be freeing in and of itself. But that even death, even our sin and death, couldn't stop the power of God at work through Jesus, because Jesus rose from the grave with an invitation that anyone that would follow me by faith, to recognize their own sin, to recognize their own brokenness, and to simply believe that I am who I said that I was, that I did what I came to do, and that I live again seated at the right hand of the Father in heaven right now. That anybody that just says, I'm going to trust it because it's the only potential, that by faith you and I can then experience a grace that allows us to live a more and better life than, quite frankly, you and I are even capable of living. Tied directly to Jesus. The biggest thing I need you to hear and understand today on a message on how to find a better than normal family is to begin with your heart and with mine about whether or not we're in tune with who Jesus is. Because following Jesus actually begins to turn things upside down. And here's what I mean. For those of you that are in the room that are experiencing heavy, weighty thought and emotion when it comes to family, I want you to know that Jesus isn't done with your story. Jesus isn't confused about your situation. Jesus isn't handcuffed by the circumstances of folks that had destroyed their family in the process of finding self-fulfillment. Jesus was not done because Jesus rose from the dead. And here's what I mean. Jesus is quoted by one of his followers, an eyewitness to his life, a guy named Mark, in Mark chapter 10, verses 29 through 30. Jesus is speaking. He just talked to a large crowd. His disciples pull him aside and say, help us understand it. And Jesus said these words. Yes, Jesus replied, and I assure you that everyone, not those that have earned it, not those that have lived the good life, that have gotten it right, that had all the right answers, that never made a mistake, everyone in the journey of following Jesus, as imperfect as we may be, everyone who has given up house or brothers or sisters or mother or father or children or property for my sake, because all of us, for whatever reason that you're experiencing brokenness, to tune our hearts towards getting closer to Jesus, here's what he says. That if you give it up, if you pursue the good news, pursuing Jesus, the plans that he has for his life, Jesus said this, everyone will receive now in return 100 times as many houses, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, and property. He says, along with persecution, because you know that following Jesus isn't about sunshine and rainbows. Life is still hard, and people will still throw rocks at things that shine. But you will get it back now, and in the world to come, that person will have eternal what? Life. More and better life than we even knew to dream about. What does that mean? Does that mean if I come from a product of brokenness that God's going to drop me with not only a house to live in, but a vacation house or another location? Wrong path in your mind. He's saying that the pursuit of Jesus is an invitation to every imperfect sinner, every broken individual, to step into a new family. In fact, if I could leave you with something, it would be this. The closer we get to God, the more he helps us understand what family really means. Maybe you're tuning in and your nuclear family is in a very healthy place. Keep fighting for that. It won't drift towards that. But if you're tuning in and family is a disaster, family's broken, family's a mess, then in every way that you and I would not be permitted into a perfect family, God has a new family in store. What does that mean? His family. That in every way that the relationships in your family might be damaged, they would become available in the church, the family of God. That's what it looks like to live this out. That your houses become houses where folks can get closer to him. And even in this church alone, we have 3 houses that we celebrate together. Tyrone, downtown, Seminole, and even the online crowd. That we become accessible to people that can be fathers or mothers from us in the absence of one. That we have siblings to do life with, and we have a next generation to invest in, because to step into this family is not stepping into a standard of perfection, but stepping into this family is to step into the beauty of grace found only in Jesus. So big question, how can I have a better than normal family? Whether we're talking about nuclear or otherwise, it means this, that you find a family that gathers to worship. Because if you don't keep Jesus the central focus of your family, you will not drift towards health from him. You invest in the next generation, help them talk about, make God a part of your life, that they can learn what it means to love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. That you connect relationally, because following Jesus isn't a journey of isolation, it's a journey of togetherness. And then you serve the community. From BridgePoint's very beginning, it said we're going to do 4 things well. Those 4 things are gathering to worship, investing in the next generation, connecting relationally, and serving the community. Why? Because when the family is healthy, we prioritize these 4 things. So I don't know about your family. I don't know about your story. Are there perfect churches? No. If there was, I couldn't pastor it. If there was a perfect church, you and I couldn't attend it, because then it wouldn't be perfect. But is there a group of imperfect people recognizing our imperfection in pursuit of a perfect God? Yes. And as much as you and I don't belong in the perfect family, you and I have a place in this family because of who Jesus is and what he's done for us. So in the journey of your faith, as it relates to the experience of BridgePoint, are you gathering to worship, online or in person? Are you investing in the next generation? Some of you need to be serving there. Some are investing that way through your giving. Maybe it's time to ask how you can do more. Are you connecting relationally? You are needed, your voice is needed, your experience is needed in this family. And are you serving the community? Because we live next door to a whole bunch of folks that need to know that there's a place where they can belong as family. Better than normal. How do you have better than normal in your family? It starts with how well your journey of getting closer to God is going. If you're finding that in your nuclear family, thank God for it. If you're not, I want you to know that there's a family that would love to embrace you and all that you bring to this family as a part of our journey of getting closer to God. Are we perfect? No. Do we have the potential, because of who God is and what he's doing in and among us, to be better than normal? Thank you, Jesus, that could be our story. Would you pray with me? God, I hope that every heart today that hears this message or experiences it in any capacity, what they walk away understanding is that in your economy, in your family, there's room for us, even those of us that are imperfect, that are broken. There's room here to find the mother or father that we never had. There's room here to just be in the journey of getting closer to you. There's room here to be okay not being okay. There's room here to find people that will do life with us, and there's room here for us to invest ourselves back into the community. God, we're not perfect, and you already know that. But God, we just want to get closer to you. So for every person that hears that, God, today needs to begin with our relationship with you. We don't even get to family. We don't even get to that moment until we recognize our brokenness, our emptiness, our desire to be fulfilled and satisfied. And God, what I hope resonates louder than anything else is if we'll just look back to your cross and your empty tomb, there is every ounce of satisfaction our soul is searching for. God, would you help us to be a family that finds our worth and our value in you, Jesus? In your name we pray. Amen.